Where are you from? San Maurice. Thank you. Okay. Okay, I'll leave you. There are 3 sessions today, two and in between there are like some fillers and case studies. So bear with us. We're gonna be able, hopefully, to finish by 3 p.m. as we promised. Although we start late, but bear with us. The sessions are informative. I believe there is a PowerPoint. You don't have to take notes unless it's necessary to do this. And there will be some exercise and case study. Yes. This is what we say. If you have your name, your email, we can send it, share it with you. Not now.
Thank you. لابسة كعب النهارده. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming here today. My name is Nancy, and I'm from St. Marina Church, Nancy al-Masri. And like Abuna, let me introduce myself a little bit first. Like Abuna told you, I have 2 adult kids with autism. They're 25 and 24. And they both have a diagnosis of autism. Natalie is mild to moderate, and Alex is severe. I also work as an instructional assistant, IBI, and IBI just stands for Intensive Behavioral Intervention for Saddleback School District, and I started in 1999, so it's been more than 20 years. So just a couple things. To start off, I want to let you know that a lot of the information that's on the PowerPoints today, I proudly copied and pasted from Google. So it's all online. None of it is my original material or anything. I just want to make sure, for copyrights reasons and plagiarism, that it's not my words. It's actually, there's a ton of, stuff that you can go online and read for yourselves. So I just copied and pasted some of the stuff that I thought would be important for us to learn today as we're trying to serve within our church community. The other thing is I always say child or kids a lot, just because I work with preschoolers and who have autism and other disabilities, and my kids are my kids, so no matter how big they get, they're still kids to me. So I say the word kids and children a lot, but keep in mind that a lot of people with developmental disabilities, like my son, for example, even though he's 25, cognitively he's between 3 to 5 years old. So he's still a child in a sense. So just keep in mind that a lot of these strategies, they work with kids as well as adults with disabilities. So we're just the first session. I promise Salwa is going to be under 25 minutes because we have 3 sessions today. The first one, we are attempting to just introduce different disabilities, let you know what the different characteristics of each one is, how to identify them and stuff like that. And previously we had a lot of information. A lot of it was, more medical and stuff. So like I said again, if you're curious or if you know somebody with a specific disability you'd like to learn, that's what I used to do. At work, I would meet somebody with Tourette syndrome or Rett syndrome, which I've never heard of before. I would go online and read about Rett syndrome. What are the symptoms? What are their abilities and disabilities and so on. So if you want to expand on this later, you can do your own research online. But I think we'll get started. There we go. I did the first one. I was afraid it's not going to flip. So my experience also, not just from school and from my kids, Abu Nabshoy, God bless him, has been doing a special liturgy for our special needs kids, and we call it a VIP club because afterwards we used to have our volunteers, like you guys, stay, watch the kids. So after the services, communion, the parents would actually leave the kids with us and we'd take care of them. Whether within the church we'd have activities like arts and craft or sports or a jumper, something different every time. And the parents would go and take a 3 or 4 hour break and then come back and pick up their kids. Now, a lot of my volunteers have gotten older, gotten married, moved away. So we still have volunteers, but not enough to keep everybody safe if the parents are not there helping us watch them. So the look of our service has changed a little bit. Salwa here has a special needs class for Sunday school, and she also has shadow aides, meaning servants, who follow the kids into their regular Sunday school classes and help them, attend Sunday school. So every church might have different needs, different programs. They might look different, but that's what we're aiming to do is to be shy. Oh, there we go. Got it. Thank you. Okay. So just a quick definition, disability, of course, is any, impairment that may, prohibit people from participating in society and in different daily routines or activities that they need to. So it's encountering limitations, whether it's physical, mental, sensory, which we're going to talk a lot about in a moment, but that's a definition of disability from the World Health Organization. There are types of disabilities, like we said, physical, sensory. Physical is, when it's obvious, when it's a physical disability, like people with cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy, we're going to go into details about 3 of the majority of disabilities that you might see. But cerebral palsy is one of the physical disability. A sensory disability is, or the olfactory. Let me just give you a couple of quick examples that might stick in your mind. My son would gag because he had sensory or oral sensory issues, they call them. Like he can't stand certain tastes or certain textures in his mouth. So if you give him yogurt, he would gag. He can't swallow that. He's not able. It bugged him so much. But if you take him to the playground, he'll eat handfuls of sand. He'll actually grind the sand and eat it. And I want you to think of something, because we're going to talk later about how we don't want us so much to focus about the person's disability as much as try to figure out what they can do, what is their ability. Because you'll be surprised. These children, they can't do certain things because they can't regulate certain sensory issues in their bodies, but they're able of other things that would really, blow your mind and surprise you. So my daughter, for example, would be driving the car since she was 4 to this day, driving in the van on, the road or whatever, and she'll say, "Oh, it smells like cotton candy." And you go, "I don't smell anything," And 3 miles down the road, sure enough, you pass a bakery and it smells so sweet. It smells like cotton candy. You're like, wow, she smelled it 3 miles ago when none of us could. She does that all the time. Another quick story, for example, my best friend who had a daughter who was 8, they were 4 years apart. So when she was 8, Natalie was 4. She always gave me the best, very expensive clothes, hand-me-downs and stuff. And because they were too big for Natalie, I would save them for a year or so till she grew into them. Wash them, of course, and put them away. So one time, Natalie had come out of the, bathroom, and I'm putting on this dress for her, and I go, "Look, Natalie, Mommy got you this new dress." My best friend's daughter's name was Christine. And Natalie goes like this, "Kiki," because she called her Kiki. So years later, after the dress has been washed and put away, she could actually smell, my best friend's daughter's scent in the clothes still. I never knew how to hone that ability or what to do with it. I was thinking maybe she can be a police dog when she grows up. I don't know. But they have these abilities that, it's really amazing. So just keep that in mind. Even though they look like they're not able to do much, they compensate for it with their sixth sense even. They can really sense when people are genuinely caring and loving, or when people are just doing this just because it's a job and I get paid for it, speech therapist or whoever. They can really sense, more than us. So while you're working with kids, like for example, Salwa has, different people going to different Sunday school classes, helping these kids, whatever. If that kid, doesn't take to you or is not listening to you, but you see them listening to somebody else, that's okay. Don't take it personal. It's because of, maybe the way you talk, it really irritates them. Natalie, for example, to this day can't stand the vacuum. They have what is called, and that's one of the other sensory things, hypohearing. She, just like she could smell things miles away, she could hear things more intense than you ever can imagine. So we're gonna show a video later that will really exemplify this. When somebody's in the mall, all these things that they're taking in is really hard for them to process and to, divide and then pay attention to this when they're hearing other things that you may not be hearing in the room. So there's also, like it could be, of course, vision disabilities if somebody's blind or deaf. The most important thing that we want to take from this section here is just the politically correct terms that we use for people with disabilities have changed over the decades and the years. Like, for example, it used to be mentally retarded, and then, everybody agreed that it's not a nice word to use, so they changed it to handicap, and then, a couple decades down the line, handicap now is not a good word because it points to their limits or their disability, that what they're not able to do. So now we say disability or special needs. And the people first language, meaning always focus on the person, not their disability. So when you're saying not the kid in the wheelchair, the kid who uses the wheelchair. And try to stay away from saying the autistic kid, or you can say Alex who has autism, or Sarah who has Down syndrome. So always put the person first, because you have to still, remember yourself and remind others that they're a person, they're an individual, they're special, and don't focus so much on their disability as much as they're still a person who has pretty much the same needs as all of us. So developmental disabilities are usually, like we said, people who have Down syndrome. It affects language, mobility, learning, self-help, independent skills, or independent living. And developmental disabilities usually will last a lifetime. So we're gonna touch real quick on the three, like I said, major disabilities we're going to talk about today. There's a lot more, but those are the ones that we see a majority of. Down syndrome, of course, is the one. Their facial features sometimes helps identify them, but it's due to an extra chromosome. So it's kind of like a genetic disorder. It's not genetic in a way that it's necessarily hereditary, but there's a gene affected, meaning that's why it's said that it's genetic, because a gene that's affected causes it. Now, Down syndrome, people with Down syndrome, it really varies. Their abilities vary so much. You could have people who really, it affects the way they talk, they swallow, they socialize. Most of them are very social people, but you can find people very low, and at the same time, people who can graduate college, drive, and get married with Down syndrome. So it really depends, and that's another thing that you all need to be aware of all the time, that don't generalize. Not because you know somebody with autism, then you assume that everybody else you're gonna meet with autism is gonna be the same way or has the same issues or same difficulties. That's not true. So for example, with autism, they call it ASD, the autism syndrome disorder, because they believe it's like an umbrella. There's so many levels, so many variables. So there are some kids with Down syndrome who can talk. Some will never learn to talk and maybe learn sign language. But like I said, even though their IQ is usually very low, they're very social, very loving, to the point where we have to teach them sometimes. Don't hug every person you see. It's okay to smile at people, but hugging and kissing is just for mommy and daddy, because they do hug people on the street, strangers. They're very social, unlike other disabilities. But keep that in mind. Everybody's different. Where are you going to know what they're able or not able to do, where they need help from? The family. And that's going to be our second session, and Salwa is going to talk to you a lot about that. The family is going to be your main source. Don't expect to, learn about a kid all by yourself. They may not have language. They may not have movement. How are you going to learn what they like, what they don't like, or what they need help with and what they'd rather do independently? How are you going to know if you don't have a means of communication with them? You need to ask the parent. And so Salwa is going to go over that because sometimes you need to treat the parents with a bit of sensitivity, and she'll go through why. But this is how you're going to find out where is the person you're working from on the level of abilities and what they need help with. Now, cerebral palsy is, and correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody here is from the medical field, I'm saying anything wrong, but cerebral palsy are people you see, most of them are in wheelchairs because it results from a brain injury. And that brain injury could happen during pregnancy, during birth, after birth. It could happen anytime. But when it does happen, it doesn't mean it's not a degenerative disease. It doesn't mean it's not going to get worse and worse. It's just it will affect certain areas in the brain that affect certain functions in the body. So again, the movement is very limited because their muscles get very stiff and they have a lot of involuntary movement. So you'll see their arms just moving all of a sudden or moving repetitively, like tremors. So just a quick example, because when you have somebody like that who starts coming to church and you're looking to help them out or show them around or help them in Sunday school, always ask first if anybody needs help. You got to keep that in mind. Always ask first. Don't assume, oh my God, his arm is like going like this, he's gonna, hit himself or whatever. It's sometimes if you try to move his arm the opposite way, you might hurt him more than helping. So that's why always, find your initial information from parents before you start helping. Is he okay if I push his hands? Is he okay if I move his chair this way? Or you can ask them. Most people with cerebral palsy have average intelligence, like you and me. They're just typical people, trapped in these bodies. And so you talk to them. And we're going to watch a video about cerebral palsy today where it says, talk to me. They're a person. They're not, don't talk over them. You can ask them and talk to them. If you're having a hard time understanding their response, then always seek, the parents' help. It's like, I asked him so-and-so, but I'm not sure what he's saying. Can you explain that to me, or can you tell me which is the best way to do this or that? So that's people on cerebral palsy. And again, a lot of them will graduate college. I know one who uses an iPad for communication. He types with his toes because he has better control over his feet than his hands. And he got a master's in communication, and he started his own agents. He doesn't talk, and he drools in his wheelchair. But he got his master's in communication, and he started an advocacy agency that's called All One Voice, or One Voice is One, or something like that. I can't remember what it's called. But keep that in mind. They are people, and they're capable of so many things that you may not give them credit for. Autism is my favorite. It's a neurodevelopmental disorder. Again, it's something that will last a lifetime. Things don't necessarily get worse, but they don't necessarily get better either. It depends. It really depends on the environment, the early intervention. The majority of the disability we see now is under that umbrella of ASD, or autism syndrome disorder. They call it a syndrome, again, like I said, because it's so variable abilities of people, what they can do. But the major two things that I want you to take about autism is that there's a lot of sensory issues. There's a lot of rigidity because they're so used to schedules and things being done the same way day after day. We're all creatures of habits. I mean, if you really think about your life, what's the first thing you do every morning? You'll see that it's the same thing. You know, whether I like to wash my hair first, I like to brush my teeth. Nope, first thing is my coffee. Nope, you know, like everybody, you take the same way to work every day, you know, unless there's an accident or whatever. When you have to change your way, you're not very happy about that. And you're like, I don't know if I'm gonna lose time now because I didn't take the road I'm used to. And so it's the same way with them. It's just all this sensory, like I said, is overloaded sometimes, and they don't know how to deal with it. So they'll start having certain behaviors that to us, you know, in society is not acceptable. It's not okay. Whether they're being too loud or flapping their arms. But if you think about it, we all have autism to some degree. We all have things that we do to calm ourselves down. You know, like when I'm talking, I'm always turning my ring when I'm talking to someone, or some people will stand there and move their foot, you know, back and forth. We all do things. It's called self-stimulation, and it's actually, you do it in order to calm down your anxiety. So when you're watching, you know, like when we were in school and you're sitting in a lecture or something, remember when a lot of us used to bite the pencil at the end? You're grinding your teeth. You're giving yourself sensory input in order to be able to focus more while you're listening to the lecture. So researchers, when they go back and they look at all these things, like everybody has autism to some degree. It's just that we are able to, we have it, you know, like it's not intense enough, so we are able to regulate it. We're able to do the things we have to do, out in the open, we're in the community, because we know that that's not gonna be looked at as appropriate. But these guys, they don't know, they don't care, because sometimes they get so narrow-focused on a certain thing that they're doing that they don't see that other people are looking down at them or looking negatively at them. That's why it's called tawahud bil-Arabi, because they're in their own world. So the three main characteristics of kids with autism is the lack of communication skills, social skills, and of course the behavior that results. And we're going to talk about behaviors later in more length, and talk about why these behaviors happen. My son, for example, used to collect markers or pens everywhere we go, every house we visit, every place we go. As soon as he finds a pen or two, and he was young, he was 4 or 5, so people are like, oh, okay, you can have it, you know, and they give up their pen, any pen or marker he'd see. So he had these, it was like a safety blanket kind of thing. He had to take it everywhere. It was like a big Ziploc bags full of like 200 markers or pens. And his favorite time, or self-stemming time, which to calm him down, used to be he'll put them on the floor and he'll start shuffling them and twirling them in the air, making these happy noises and things like that. And one time my husband was passing by, and Alex had these, you know, spread on the carpet in the living room. He was talking on the phone. He picks up a marker to write a phone number. And at the time, Alex had gone to the bathroom, whatever. He comes back, and he starts turning, you know, the couches, the table. He's looking for something, and we don't know what. He didn't have any words or language at the time. Finally, you know, my husband's done with his phone call, and he throws the marker down, and Alex is relieved. It's like, I found it. So he knew which one was missing from the 200 randomly thrown on the carpet kind of markers. That's called, because that's those people who are like I said, they're lacking in other areas. They're very visual learners, not auditory learners. Visually, you have to show them in pictures things that you want them to learn or understand. And that, again, there's a visual component of the behavior that we're going to talk about later. The last thing I want you to be aware of is that throughout almost most of the disabilities, there are two things mainly in common. A lot of them have the lack of or very limited communication skills, like I said, so that goes across the board. Whether they're cerebral palsy, they're in a wheelchair, it affects their speech. Kids with Down syndrome, their speech is affected and communication skills. Same thing with autism. And that's why the visual stuff works with a lot of them. Also, I don't know why, medically, for some reason, they all happen. I think it's because their bodies are not developing in a typical kind of rate. They get seizures. A lot of them get seizures. And I don't want you to be scared of seizures. I don't know if any of you have seen seizures before, but again, on YouTube there are videos, but we're going to show you one today that's about what to do in case of a seizure, just things to remember. There are two types of seizures, mainly the grand mal or focal seizures, they call them, is the ones where they have a lot of convulsions. The other one, the partial seizure, is the one where it can look like they'll be sitting, they're not going to fall or lose consciousness, but it looks like they space out and they're not responding for a few minutes. So those are partial seizures. So with that, I'll leave you with a couple of videos about the things that I talked about. And the last one is going to be about what to do in case of a seizure. Thank you. Well, this is just a quick video about putting yourself in somebody's shoes, an autistic kid in the mall who's having a hard time processing all these sensory inputs that he's getting, sounds and lights and perfumes. Like I said, my daughter can smell and hear things miles away. So that's what that video is about.
Two, three, four, five, 6, 7, 8, 9. Take my hand. No, Alex. It's fine, isn't it? It's fine. I'm not naughty. I'm autistic. And I just get too much information.
My name is Phoebe. I'm 11 years old and I have got cerebral palsy. I am disabled and I cannot walk or jog. I use a special computer to help me jog. I use that by looking at my screen.
Phoebe is very bright and intelligent. She's very driven and hardworking. She's always trying to achieve her goals, and she likes to participate in all the activities we do as a family. So we try and enable as much as possible that she can do the things that we do and adapt them to make sure that she's very much involved, and she loves all that. She's very adventurous.
I am clever. I am just like you. And I don't like people talking to me like I am a baby.
Is this your daughter?
Yes, it is, yeah.
She's very pretty.
I know, she's lovely, isn't she?
And how old is she?
She's 11.
Oh, tell me, what's wrong with her?
There's nothing wrong with her. You can talk to her.
Oh, I didn't know that. Hello? Hello? You?
I am just like you. I love swimming. And I love to go skiing. I go to schools and they ask me questions like how do you use your computer, and I ask them questions like what's your favorite animal.
Would you like to do at school?
I like maths.
What would you like to be when you're older?
I would like to be on television.
What's it like not to talk?
It is normal.
When Phoebe wakes up in the morning, she has enormous challenges to overcome, but she's so positive, happy and determined that we don't really see them as challenges, and she certainly doesn't. She's great with people, she's got a winning smile, and she really engages with people that take the time and come up to her and speak to her. She loves that. I'm incredibly proud of her.
You might meet me or someone else with a physical disability. Don't treat us like a baby or ignore us. Talk to me.
How you react when someone is having a tonic-clonic seizure can make a difference. You can help them by following a few simple, common-sense guidelines.
First of all, stay calm.
So how hard was that test?
It was bad.
Yeah, bad? How about horrible? I didn't even finish half of it.
Oh my God,
He's
what's
having
happening?
a seizure. Come help me. Okay, let's just stay calm and make sure he's safe.
Make sure there's nothing that could harm the person having the seizure. Protect their head from banging against the ground while the person is shaking.
Okay, now one of the most important things is to make sure his head is supported. So if you can pass me that jacket, you can put it underneath his head, and this way, he won't hurt his head.
Okay.
There we go.
Make sure the person is lying on their side.
And make sure that their head is inclined, not facing down. So if there's saliva in their mouth, it won't go down their airway and choke them.
Okay, now if at all possible, we want to try to get him on his side.
Okay.
So, there we go.
All right.
Okay, now the reason why we have his head sideways is to make sure his saliva falls out of his mouth and he doesn't choke on it.
If you have a watch, time the length of the shaking phase of the seizure.
How long now?
About 1 minute and 10.
Okay.
Make the person as safe and as comfortable as you can.
So what else can we do, or is this it?
No, all we can do right now is make sure he's safe, make sure he's comfortable. Also want to make sure his head is still sideways. There we go. It's okay.
Make sure that onlookers are kept away.
Okay, another thing to keep in mind, if you're in a crowded place and there's like a group gathering around, just tell them to keep moving it along.
Do not hold the person down. If they're thrashing around, you could get hurt. You need to stay safe to help them.
Shouldn't we be holding him down or something?
No, you want to make sure you don't do that, because if you do that, you can hurt him or hurt yourself.
Do not put anything in the person's mouth.
I heard we're supposed to put something in his mouth.
Actually, that's something we don't want to do. You can actually hurt him that way.
How?
You can break his teeth or you can block his airway.
Oh.
You just have to let him be.
Some people think you can swallow your tongue during a seizure. That's a myth. It's impossible to swallow your tongue.
Don't give the person water, food, or any pills until the seizure is over and they're fully alert. So the big question, when do you call 911?
If it's the person's first seizure, or if you don't know whether they've had a seizure before, or if you're with someone you know has epilepsy, and they have a seizure that lasts more than 5 minutes.
Or if the person's injured or vomits, call 911 to get professional medical help.
Above all, be sensitive and supportive, and ask others to do the same.
Stay calm. Make sure the person is lying on their side.
And make sure that their head is inclined, not facing down. So if there's saliva in their mouth, it won't go down their airway and choke them.
Time the length of the shaking phase of the seizure.
Make the person as safe and as comfortable as you can. Do not hold the person down.
Do not put anything in the person's mouth. Don't give the person water, food, or any pills until the seizure is over and they're fully alert. When do you call 911?
If it's the person's first seizure, or if you don't know whether they've had a seizure before, or if you're with someone and they have a seizure that lasts more than 5 minutes.
Or if the person's injured or vomits, call 911 to get professional medical help. Now you know some things about epilepsy.
You know that seizures can happen to just about anybody, anywhere, anytime.
And now you know that making sure someone who's having a seizure stays safe is really not a big deal.
So I just want to say one quick thing about the seizure. I don't know if you were going to talk about it, like about church liability. Is that what you wanted? Okay. So I just wanted to say a lot of parents, like me, for example, my son has seizures like 2 or 3 a month. So for me, I don't call 911 every time. And when I send him to his day program, I tell him the same thing. Don't call 911 unless he has 2 in a row, or unless it's more than 5 minutes. Actually, 1 minute of seizure seems like forever. To you, it will feel like it's been going on forever. It's a little scary the first time you see it, but just as long as you make sure, if they're gonna fall, just, help them down gently. Make sure there's nothing they can hit their head around them or something like that. But as a church, even if the parent, I always find that the seizure history from the parents. Ask the coordinator in your church, whoever is responsible for whatever program you're participating in at church. The coordinator should have that medical information and seizure history, and you should know, what to expect if a seizure happens. A lot of parents will say, don't call 911, because they don't want to deal with the hospital having to go there and get, spend overnight or whatever. They're so used to it. But for us as a church, because there's, we want to make sure the kids are safe. If it's the first time or if it lasts too long, call 911. Abuna might have something to say about that. Thank you.
Any question? Do you have a question? Okay. So how many people here are first time to learn about this stuff? First time to hear about all this stuff. Okay, very good. How many people have CPR experience before classes? Oh, very good, very good. So it's although it's not required, it's required. Yani it's better to have it, not to have it. Okay. Who's ready to volunteer to answer a question? No one raises up his hand. You've been raising up your hand. Okay, I'm gonna pick volunteers. It's my voluntold. Like, I'm gonna tell you. Okay. Mention one thing that you have learned from the first session, from the first slides that Nancy you gave. Who's gonna answer? So instead of saying disability, they are people with different ability. They have different abilities, right? So we need to think positively about the person that we're dealing with. Very good. Who else? Someone else raised this. Yes, Mary. So please don't treat them as pets. Okay? Treat them, they are human beings created in God's image and likeness. Don't treat them as pets. Very good. Always go to the parents because the parents are the one who are sensitive too. So they want to see their kids like being treated as human beings. So talk to them, understand many things from them. So it educates us how to deal with the kids. We voluntarily sometimes give candy to the kids. Ask before you do anything, right? Anyone else? This is going to be another question. So false alarm. So on seizure, can you answer on seizure, do you call right away 911 for the first time, or what do? You call the parents. Which one is right? If it's you haven't seen a person before, and this is so, do you call 911 or do you call parents? It depends on how long. What's the safest answer? 911. Don't take a risk. Okay? Nancy alluded to this now. You may be familiar with these kids, you may be familiar with this family, but you're not in any situation, you're not familiar. Call 911. Don't take the risk. Okay? We are not in a position to decide what to do. We are in a position to make sure that the person is safe. Yes. There is some sort of liability in a way. Since you are an institution, we have a liability, right? We don't want to be blamed by the parents or someone else. That if parents are going to blame me for calling 911, I would rather have to be blamed for this, not to be blamed to be neglected or outsmarting or anything else, right? Yes. Yes, but once we say we're in a training, so any of us are going to be deal with the situations outside and the outside world. You find a car, someone stopped, you wanted to help the person, you're not certified by any ways, and you did something right or wrong, there's a Samaritan law that helps us, the Good Samaritan. But yet, once you have a license that you CPR, you're liable. If you are CPR certified, then you know what to do. Then there is no excuse. So we need to be careful with this. So the best thing that we do is that to go to the right path, call 911. Okay? In a circumstance, let's say you're the parents, assume that you're the parents, and the kids are being taken somewhere to the next door to do some activities until we discuss things like what we're going to do in May. Still, we're going to ask the parents, and this is part of the next training, we're going to ask and get details about every kid that we're going to be dealing with. And we're going to assign people that you know, that they know you too. I'm going to say this in the end. But anyways, they are next door. Just I can leave the kid and go and get the parents. Well, we have to have a teamwork. Someone takes care of the guest, knows what to do. The other one calls the parent. The other one ready to call 911. So there will be a protocol in doing this. It's a nice question. You're ahead of the game. 2-1 is good. Well, this is what experience is. 2-1, right? Yes. 2 servants to 1, so they can keep an eye. Because sometimes we tend to say, okay, he's playing, but once you do this, he's not playing. So we need to be careful with this. Okay, I'm preparing you for the next one. Are we ready? So one more question. Which statement is right? I know a kid who's an autistic named Alex. I know the autistic kid, Alex. Which one is right? The name first? So, like, he's an autistic kid. He's a disabled person. This is, we say, no, focus on the name. I know Alex who is, or I know someone who is an autistic. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to leave you now with Salwa, and Salwa is going to take us into understanding the family. So one of the major situations that we have is to understand how we deal with the family and how the family wants us to handle the situation. So this is very important and sensitive, so pay attention because there will be also scenarios and exercise after.